This is the ecliptic, and I set the location here in Stellarium in Jerusalem from the vantage point of the center of the Holy Land, which is what everyone would have seen throughout history, right? And as you can see, I've got the year set to in the 1930s. We're in the west, where the sun would set. And as I toggle these years on the date of 9/11, and I go up in years, you're going to notice something. You're going to notice a procession of all of the heavenly bodies, year after year, going through this precise location in Aquarius, the man bearing the water jug. Now let me go backwards. Back to the 1930s again. Now, I just picked the 1930s arbitrarily because it's relatively modern times. But let's slowly toggle through here on the date of 9/11, 1922, 23, 24. And as you can see, there's a procession of the planets, the sun, the moon, and all the planets. Jupiter, of course, there was Saturn, it's one of the planets, proceeding up from the west, going up, 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 from the west to the east. Now, why am I showing you this? Well, I've got the time set just after sunset as we're toggling through here. And this procession of these heavenly bodies and planets happens just after sunset in the west. What is this about? Well, the Bible tells us that all things were made through him and in him, Jesus Christ. And this alignment is happening, the alignment you're looking at in Stellarium as we toggle through each of the years. It is happening because we've entered the age of Aquarius, the house of Aquarius, the beginning of another 2,000-year period. Look, there's Mars, Uranus, all of them filtered through here. The moon, Jupiter, going right through the house of Aquarius. Wow. But notice that this happens only at sunset on 9/11 or that date. So we have a time marker here, don't we? The ecliptic stream of the moon, the sun, the planets passing through this constellation age. Now, 2,000 years ago, something different happened at this time marker. Because 2,000 years ago, when Jesus was born, this stream of planets came through a different constellation. Pisces. Watch as we travel back in time until Pisces comes into view at this precise location in the west. Now, what I'm describing to you is a phenomenon called precession. We're going back in time. We're in the 2000s. We're in the 1900s. We're in the 1800s. On the date of 9/11, just before sunset. We're now in the 1700s, going back to the time of Jesus. Trying to keep the time right after sunset. And what will emerge is Pisces. Now, until I actually show you this with Stellarium, Few people believe this, but it is undeniable. And as we go back all the way to the beginnings of around the time Jesus was born, we will see Pisces emerge. Now, there's no quick way to do this. I could just type in the date, but because this is the online version of Stellarium, it's difficult to do. And if I try to use the actual, file version on my laptop, it's almost too much bandwidth or whatever, and it might crash the system. So I don't want to risk that. We're now in the 900s. You can do this yourself. Stellarium-web.org. You can play around with the dates here and go back in time. So we're still in the west on the horizon. And there you start to see Pisces emerge, the two fish. Now, what is so significant about this? Well, what I'm going to show you is how Herod and the astronomers knew the precise time in which Jesus would be born. We're also going to talk about how they knew the place that he was born. Bethlehem, of course. We're now in the 300s. There you see the ecliptic. Now, the reason why the sun's coming through is because as you go back in time, the actual time of the day begins to shift. So you have to account for that. But I'm glad you're seeing this, because you're seeing how the sun is in this line, this stream, a river of the heavenly bodies. Let's keep going back in time. We're now in the 200s AD, getting very close to the time of Jesus. And I'll adjust the time of the day in a second here. But we're still on the date of 9/11, which is what many of us believe is the time or the date that he was born. Let's fix the time now. Going to sunset, 2100. And we're in 30 AD. And there you see the string of planets. Now remember, in our current timeline, at about this time marker in the heavens, what did we see here? It was Aquarius, wasn't it? But now look, there is Pisces, the fish. We're all the way down to 2 AD. Let's go down to 1 AD, 9/11. And here you see Uranus and Pisces, the two fish, in the former position of where Aquarius was, which is where it is now, right? So now you're starting to understand precession. It is a very real phenomenon. It's not made up. Even as an astronomer now, you can measure it, even though the incremental measurements would be very, very minute. You'd still be able to extrapolate backwards mathematically and understand that the sky moves. So no one's making this up. It's a real scientific fact. They're called Earth ages, and they last for 2,000 years. So for 2,000 years, this Pisces was dominant in this exact position as it began to move across the sky and was replaced with Aquarius, which is where we're at now. So as you can see, we've said nothing about astrology, and I'm going to very, very, very clearly explain this to you, because we are not an astrological channel. We're an astronomical channel, and there are astronomical things happening in the skies that seem to suggest a connection, signs in the heavens. So, the stream of planets, the sun and moon, rising up through Pisces. See that? Rising up. There we're going down in time, they're falling down, but as time progresses on, they rise up out of the west. So, what is this about? Well, obviously, Jesus was born at this precise moment in time. And this was the sign that people saw. The 2 fish that Jesus would then later in his ministry use to feed massive crowds. You know, it's interesting. There were actually 2 instances in the Bible. A pair, 2 fish feeding a crowd. It happened twice. And that wasn't a repeat in different books. It actually happened twice. That was another clue. So, did they start to see this stream of planets coming up through Pisces, signaling that they had entered the age of Pisces when Jesus would use these same 2 fish to feed the massive crowds? That is the question. Well, in order for that to be somewhere before Jesus was born, we would have had to seen that in the Bible, right? Where 2 fish were mentioned as a sign of his coming, wouldn't we? We would have had to have seen that foretelling in the Bible. Well, let's start our journey here in Luke chapter 22. And they said unto him, Where wilt thou that we prepare? And he said unto them, now Jesus is talking to his disciple, Behold, when ye are entered into the city, there shall a man meet you, bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him into the house where he entereth in. And ye shall say unto the good man of the house, The master saith unto thee, Where is the guest chamber, where I shall eat the Passover with my disciples? And he shall show you a large upper room, furnished. There make ready. And they went and found as he had said unto them, and they made ready the Passover. Yes, we will be sitting at the Passover dinner with Jesus Christ in the mansion of many rooms when he returns in the clouds in this age of Aquarius, the man bearing the pitcher of water. We are right here at the doors. This was the clue of his return. But let's go back to his birth and try to figure out if there was a sign. Now, this is Pisces. I just looked at it in Stellarium. Pisces, named for the Latin plural of fish, occupies 889 square degrees, making it the 14th largest constellation overall. There's a lot in those numbers, but I'll leave that up to you to decide what that means. Pisces is notable for containing the point at which the sun crosses the celestial equator into the northern hemisphere around March 20th each year. That's the vernal equinox, which used to lie in Aries, but was moved into Pisces because of the Earth's wobble. They're talking about precession here. Now, what they're not telling you here is, yes, this is about the celestial equator, but really what you're looking for is the dominant constellation in the night sky in the west, which I just showed you in Stellarium. It's shifted off by one constellation. So that's kind of obscure here, but that is the truth. Now, let's keep going. Let's go to the book of Ezekiel. Ezekiel 47, because we have to find somewhere a prophet that talked about the Pisces, don't we? In order to know what Herod's astronomers were actually looking at and how they knew where or what time Jesus would be born. Because if we don't have this in the Bible, then we can't just say that they were looking at signs in the heavens, can we? Well, here's Ezekiel, and he seems to be foretelling the coming of Christ. In Ezekiel 47, he speaks of a man of bronze and healing waters coming from under the threshold. And flowing east. Healing waters coming from under the threshold and flowing east. So here's the stream of planets flowing from the west to the east. Casey, where are the fish? I'm going to explain it to you. The fish become the stream of planets coming up from the horizon and flowing across the sky from the west to the east. All this was talked about in the book of Ezekiel. Where Jesus would be born 500 years after these words are written down in Ezekiel. Now it says in 47:9 that all the fish in the river shall be healed. And of course, Jesus was the fisher of men and healed them when he came. Baptism in the waters. The men in the waters are the fish. Wow. Now I'll put links to all this. You're going to want to read through 47 in detail because it seems to be talking about the coming of Jesus Christ. Here's the part about the man of bronze. He refers to the man whose appearance was like bronze in 47:3. Now, what else is going on? Okay, so how did Herod know where the exact location that Jesus would be born in Bethlehem? Well, apparently they pieced that together as well. Micah 5:2, another prophet, before Jesus' coming, prophesied that Jesus would be born in Bethlehem. So, all of the prophets prophesied a piece of the total picture of Jesus coming. That's why they were called the prophets, and that's why Jesus kept referring back to them, didn't he? Because he knew that they were talking about him. Who else would they be talking about? Well, what is the most important message that the prophets were foretelling? It wasn't just their contemporary timeline. It was the coming of the Son of God, correct? And so we have a time marker and a location. And this is why Herod went full retard and killed all the firstborn in Bethlehem. Because he knew that Jesus was coming. So here's what's clear to me. Above, Jesus is represented as both Pisces, his earthly ministry, and Aquarius, his heavenly return. So we have two constellations that seem to represent Jesus' first coming and second coming. To prepare for the Passover, to find the man upstairs carrying the water jug. That was telling us about the general timeline of his return for the second coming. Now, Pisces is an air sign, not water. Even though the man's bearing a water jug, it's actually air. which is how Jesus will return, won't he? He's coming back in the air, not from the water womb where he came the first time and bringing healing waters of baptism and faith. The second time he's coming in the air. Now, remember, everything that God does that is good, the enemy has a counterfeit. So obviously, Micah's prophecy about Jesus being born in Bethlehem was a sign. And we can assume that Ezekiel's prophecy may have been a sign of the timing of Jesus' birth in the heavens. But that's where my observation of the stars stops. Because all things were made through him and for him. So it would make sense that it would be reflected in the stars, right? But not through us and for us. Our lives, I don't feel, apply to the stars other than the gift of the beacon of our star shining in righteousness. I believe this is where people cross the line between the signs in the heavens that the Bible speaks about and the devil's version of what the stars mean, because the Bible forbids astrology. Let's read about the signs in the heavens. The Bible says there will be signs in the heavens, and we're supposed to be looking at those signs. But again, it should be centered around the Most High and His Son, not our individual lives, who we choose as mates. You know, when you're going to purchase a vehicle, that's when it goes over into astrology. So here are all the verses about the signs in the heavens. Therefore I will shake the heavens, and the earth will move out of its place in the wrath of the Lord of hosts, and in the day of his fierce anger. Do not be dismayed at the signs of heaven, for the Gentiles are dismayed at them. And there are more verses about recognizing the signs in the heavens. And that's a great personal Bible study to do, to confirm these things. Now, here is the warning about astrology. Astrology is an interpretation of an assumed influence the stars exert on human destiny. According to astrology, the sign you were born under impacts your destiny. This is a false belief. The royal astrologers of the Babylonian court were put to shame by God's prophet Daniel and were powerless to interpret the king's dream. God specifies as among those who will be burned as stubble in God's judgment. Isaiah 47:13-14. Astrology is a form of divination, is expressly forbidden in Scripture. Deuteronomy 18:10-14. God forbade the children of Israel to worship or serve the host of heaven. Deuteronomy 4:19. So, burnt to stubble, using astrology to live your life. We're supposed to be praying to God for choices and decisions about our life, which we choose, when He wants us to do certain actions in our life. So again, signs in the heavens of Jesus' first and second coming, okay. But signs in the heavens to choose partners or live your life, not okay. Now, I want to end the show with an interesting discussion that we kind of started in the chat. And that discussion was about gravity. And what was impressed upon me as I was in the chat talking to you guys about this, God revealed something to me. That what gravity really is a dimension of the spirit. Even the word gravity has the word grave in it. We spend most of our time in this life walking just above the grave, don't we? In this fallen state, in this fallen dimension. But if you think about what gravity truly represents, it's the place where you are at in this physical dimension based on your righteousness in the cosmos, or your righteousness in the, what's the word I'm looking for? In the ranking of where we're at as a creation, correct? So let's think about this. Let's test this theory. Okay, so when you're put in the grave, you're put one level lower, right? 6 feet deep. So you're below the horizon. And where does true evil live? Well, that's even below that, in hell, Sheol. So the less righteous you are, the further down you go in the stratification of where you're planting your feet, correct? Now let's go in reverse. Let's go above us. So obviously, everything holy is above us, isn't it? Jesus in the clouds, God in heaven, and everything above. In fact, Enoch talks about different levels of heaven even. So when you go up, that's more righteousness. When you come down, that's less righteousness. And this is why God had to throw Satan out of heaven. Because he sinned. His righteousness was knocked down. So he got stratified down onto our level. Is all this making sense? I hope it is.